Welcome to What's Your Signal, the podcast exploring how today's enterprise businesses connect people, places, and things. You're joined by me, Taylor Walker, and my co-host, Mauricio Stefan. Hey, Mauricio.
Hi, Taylor. How's it hanging?
It's hanging well. Mauricio, okay, serious question. Are you a camper or a glamper?
So in my youth, I was definitely a camper. I was a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout. So definitely doing the backpacking, pack everything in kind of thing, sleeping on the ground. But as I get older and, approaching the, twilight of my life, I just I can't sleep on the ground anymore. So it is only glamping from me from this point forward.
That's fair. I tend to dabble in both. I don't necessarily love sleeping on even an air mattress because you wake up like in a taco, but my urge to get out of Dodge has really ramped up in the last few years. I don't know if it's just wanting to spend my time more wisely or what it is, but it's sort of, I've had that same feeling as when COVID hit in 2020 and people were looking to combat cabin fever. And during that time, what's interesting is RV shipments flew through the roof. They saw nearly a 40% increase in just a year, which bumped up prices. And I don't know if you kept track or saw even on Facebook Marketplace or other websites where people were even selling used RVs for more than a brand new sticker price.
Yeah. I had quite a few people that I knew both at work and in my personal life who, kind of just, they bought an RV and they traveled, everything from the full extreme of selling their house and pretty much everything they owned and just went full-time RVing to, not going to that extreme, but bought an RV and spent a lot of time on the road. Especially, for our international listeners, all five of them, the United States is big. And so, RVing, even before the pandemic, RVing was popular because there's a lot of things to see. There's a lot of things to see here in the U.S. and a lot of just, what we call Americana that you get to see on a road trip and that you don't get to see, hopping on a plane from place to place. So, it's just been a very popular, American culture thing. But yeah, the pandemic definitely accelerated. I had a couple of friends who did have the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of buying RVs during the pandemic. And yeah, prices were definitely high during that time.
Yeah.
It's the law of supply and demand.
And luckily, prices have stabilized significantly. And industry trends show that almost 31% of current owners in the last couple of years are first timers, which sort of underscores the recent boom in RV popularity. And I think the recreation industry altogether is expanding and evolving, and it's offering more opportunities for people to hit the road. And part of that evolution depends on connectivity, particularly through 5G and LTE networks, right? Because you're not going to string a wire to wherever you're going. And so we're going to talk more about that today. And to learn more about how cellular technology can enhance the customer experience on the open road, we're chatting with a team from Winnebago, so the kings of RVs, including VP of Strategy, Business Development, and Marketing, Kunal Mehta, and Senior Product Manager of Winnebago Connect, Marc Becker. Kunal, can you walk us through the Winnebago story? So in case anyone is listening who isn't familiar with that name, which I highly doubt, but just in case, tell us a little bit about the company and what you guys do and kind of how it's evolved over the years.
Absolutely. So Winnebago arguably is an eponym of the industry. We kind of claim and own the RV kind of industry. A lot of customers will say that. However, that I would say is changing with some of the demographics right now. Some of the younger folks, I would say, Taylor, don't actually know the name. So that's part of my marketing job to actually tell that story. But the story for Winnebago, the brand, started in 1958. Started out of a small town out of northern Iowa called Forest City, Iowa, where all of our operations, our product teams, our engineering teams, they still sit there. And we actually have several plants in northern Iowa area that we still produce motorhomes out of. So since 58, 66 years now, the Winnebago brand has kind of changed and kind of actually innovated in the space of RVing and arguably kind of created this marketplace of RVing in the U.S., which is pretty cool to be part of that brand. We started actually as a travel trailer company. So that's where the products really started. John K. Hansen, the original founder, he had a couple businesses and he kind of said, hey, you know what? There's this opportunity to develop trailers. It transitioned into a motorhome business. And so I think a lot of us know and have this iconic visual kind of appeal of the eyebrow, the old Winnebago from the 1970s. And those vintage Winnebagos still kind of have a place in many people's hearts. But today, the brand has expanded to be the only single brand developer of motorhomes and towables. So we actually play in Class A's, Class B's, Class C's. I'd say we've been changing the landscape, which I can get into a little bit later, around innovating in different spaces. And then we actually have a towables or a travel trailer business that we bought in 2012, and now it's under the Winnebago brand. DNA wise, if you look at our brand pillars, it's quality, innovation, service, and belonging. Innovation is really what's in our blood. If you look back historically in the market, we were the first to, and you'll oftentimes hear kind of this word pioneering. We're always the first to come out in the market with emerging technologies or historically emerging platforms. So that Class C and that vintage Winnebago that hits pop culture, from the Spaceballs to even most recently Stranger Things. That's what everybody knows us for, because that's what's anchored in the 70s. But we led the way in Class A's in the 90s, and then even the early 2000s. And Class A's, think of the larger buses, kind of a fairly traditional RV, 30 foot, 40 foot. Sometimes they can get even bigger, which in my opinion just is a bit too much space on the road that's needed. But in the early 2000s, we really pushed the boundaries of finding alternative chassis to come to the US. And so we were the first to use a Mercedes chassis and created a product called the View Navion, which Marc will probably talk a little about later as we're going to production with our latest View Navion 20 years later. Then we were the first to really proliferate hashtag van life. And I think that language is kind of dying down now. But this Class B van, the camper van mentality, using either the Ram chassis, the Mercedes chassis, we were the first to bring that to the US. And our Revel product is kind of that off-road adventure backcountry product that's really just taken off in the market. And even further, most recently, we've had an electric RV prototype that we've put into the marketplace. So innovation is core in our blood. And I'd say that's the history, and that's kind of the word I would say that surrounds at least the mentality and how all of us think within the business. And ultimately how we think about the future. The other part about the company is 8 years ago, it expanded out of Forest City, Iowa. So 8 years ago, with new leadership, our CEO, Mike Happy, came in and he was tasked with a couple things. And one of the things that he was tasked with was expanding beyond simply an RV organization. And so while we did acquire a couple major brands in the RV space, Grand Design being the fastest trailer company ever to go from where it was to the size it is today, and Newmar, another Class A, we actually ended up going into the marine space. And so now there is a corporate holding company, and I don't often call it a corporate holding, but it's called the corporate entity is Winnebago Industries, and then you're talking to the brand Winnebago. And so we no longer are just RVs, we are actually marine. So another famous brand that most people know is Chris-Craft. And so Chris-Craft is under umbrella of companies. Barletta, which is one of the fastest growing pontoon companies. And then most recently, we acquired, down through the vertical standpoint, a lithium battery manufacturer called Lithionics, which is also part of our innovation that we've incorporated within the Winnebago brand and some of our products. So long story of innovation, long story of quality, great, obviously, brand that has a lot of meaning to a lot of folks and a lot of impact to the outdoor industry in U.S. history for the last 66 years.
So how have some of these innovations over the years, and maybe specifically in the last few years, how have those influenced automation, or like what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the RV industry or within Winnebago specifically that kind of lend itself to automation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll probably want to pass some of the technical speak to Marc, but at least I can kind of paint the picture. The RV industry is changing dramatically. It's mostly our consumer that's changing the industry. And a lot of it is to do with COVID, though the transition had been happening prior to COVID. It just accelerated through COVID, like many industries where digital or automation really drove a change in many marketplaces. But for us, especially if you think about RVing, historically it's been, if I kind of put it in the center, it's kind of been Cruise America, oftentimes targeted towards Gen X and boomers, a little bit more on the retiree side of things. That transition, for as at least Kunal's opinion, is as we become more and more digital and more connected to um, our laptops, our phones, etc. Human nature is also to react the other way, and so to connect with nature and that sense of sustainability, the mental kind of ease that comes when you get out. So there's been this natural trend where the outdoors is growing, camping is growing, RV is growing since the global financial crisis, which is great for our industry. With that is this age and the demographics, both age and even racial diversity. The amount of folks that are coming into our industry is fantastic. Pre-COVID, I think the numbers were roughly 90% were kind of 55 and older, and 55 is young in our industry. Post-COVID, it kind of quickly went down to 80. A couple of years later, we're sitting in the 70s. You're starting to see half the population of campers, not just RVers, but the broader kind of pool of campers is Gen Z and millennials, which is fantastic to see. So the change in market is happening quite quickly for us. And the biggest point that I mentioned that is their expectations are so much greater than the expectations of kind of those that came before us. And so if you think of RVing as kind of in that center, as I said, and your ability to just kind of cruise America, RVing is kind of, you're starting to see some tails. The bell curve is kind of growing. And on one side, you're seeing folks use RVs, especially some of the smaller ones, for everyday use. It's kind of their one-stop shop. You can use your RV to get around town. More than anything, it's kind of the West Coast folks that are kind of seeing that. And on the other side, you're seeing RVs go further and further and further out to the middle of nowhere. That desire to disconnect and boondock, and the U.S. has the most Bureau of Land Management land out there, so that desire to kind of move out is increasing. Now, both are only capable because technology is actually enabling both of those. So to get out further, you're getting lithium, you're getting more capability to have fresh water. You have solar power so that when you are disconnecting, even though you need your laptop, you need to charge it, etc. Technology is allowing both ends. And then from going kind of left as your everyday use, is you're getting chassis that are a little bit smaller, and people are kind of redefining what they think about RVing. It's not kind of the full kit and caboodle of a big old 500 square foot RV where you have a washing machine. It's, you know what, I'm willing to kind of just keep with the basics, those simple essentials, enough to have a comfortable bed. I mean, I'm getting to the age, or I'm at the age, Marc knows this, where I'm like, I don't want to camp anymore. I want to go take an RV and I want my bed, but I still want to go hiking. I still want to do all the activities. Yeah. The RV just allows me to get out there. So when I come back to the question at hand, is the requirements that RV OEMs and our dealers need to provide to consumers are that much higher because their expectations are that much higher. Automation, and Marc will go into this, we kicked off a journey about 3-4 years ago around thinking through what are those expectations and what's the complete customer journey that a customer wants, from pre-purchase to purchase to the point of sale to ownership to service, and then ultimately kind of how they engage with their community. Automation, AI, connectivity, all of those pieces are now part of how we think about the future of RVing. And so our journey started about 4 years ago as we thought about this. Marc will kind of go into some of the concepts that we literally just went into production with, and that's, I think, why we're talking. But as we think about the technology requirements, I'll kind of pull it up one level. Consumers want efficiency. If we're going to provide technology, it's for efficiency. They want that to also reach their goals. So if it's automation or tracking and smart devices, it's really just to help them get to their goals. So I used to have an Apple Watch and a Fitbit, and that was to get to my goals in terms of targeting weight loss and the steps and all that stuff. And you can take that concept of using technology to achieve their goals when they go out to the outdoors. Technology is also for safety and peace of mind. That's a huge piece of technology, and your ability to connect with your coach away from your coach. And so that safety, peace of mind, especially you're going out to the outdoors. You want peace of mind. The whole point to go out there is to disconnect. But you also have all of the same expectations of your daily life. I'm a highly connected person. My house is fully connected. And so my expectations when I have an RV is to have my same kind of things at my fingertips, where I don't have to do more work to actually disconnect. And then a lot of technology is just simply about play and having fun and how technology can support that. But it comes with some, I don't know if call it concerns or kind of areas that we as an OEM and this industry has to pay attention to quite intimately. And by doing this, we cannot, when we enable new technologies, we can't make it so that there's a reliance on the technology and the consumer feels there's a loss of like independence, because we don't want to take that away from them. We don't want to blur the lines of like in real life and digital. And it's like we need to be highly cautious of how we allow customers to disconnect while being connected. And I think Marc will talk about some of that. And then I'd say the number one issue that most of us, I would say, keep in mind around technology when we introduce it is data. And everybody's kind of concern around privacy. And so making sure that we do not violate any consumer's trust by introducing technology, especially things that are monitoring and helping them. And so how do we kind of come to market with all of these cool things that are innovative, that might drive automation, that might draw peace of mind, efficiency, without kind of violating that trust and ensuring that they feel secure, especially if they're going to go out further and further and further. They feel secure because that's why they're disconnecting. That's why they have a passion for the outdoors.
So, Marc, you had a lot of things to balance when coming up. Now I'm thinking. So we're gonna get into the meat of Winnebago Connect, which is kind of the solution that wraps around all of the things that Kunal was just talking about. But it feels more intense now because now I'm thinking of it through these lenses of like safety, play, peace of mind, security. Yes. There's so much that goes into it. So let's level set. Marc, what is Winnebago Connect? And tell me a little bit about how it fits into some of those pillars that Kunal was talking about.
Yeah, maybe I can actually, before I talk about Winnebago Connect, I'll just kind of lead into it by saying, one of the great things about Winnebago, and Kunal talked about the track record of innovation, or the fabric of innovation throughout the organization, is when I got into the RV industry and started working with Winnebago. Someone told me, well, the way the OEM manufacturers operate is they use the analogy of they go to a grocery store with a brown paper bag and they put $70 worth of groceries in it and they sell it to you for $100. And the analogy was really, and Kunal could probably appreciate this, it holds up in the sense that most manufacturers in the RV industry are purely buying commercial off-the-shelf components and assembling them into what looks like, a house on the back of the vehicle, and then they're selling them to you, with margin. That is not Winnebago. What's awesome about Winnebago is, we do a lot of design and development of our own products within the vehicle itself. So make our own cabinetry, we make our own furniture, we make cushions and all our own tanks and et cetera, et cetera. And really, the step to develop our own technology was really just a natural evolution of that same mentality. Is how do we create differentiated experiences or capabilities that lead to great experiences that really set the brand apart? And that is really what kind of led to Winnebago Connect. Also, the understanding that a connected product offered a lot of different possibilities for the business, and we'll talk about that. So on its surface, you can think about Winnebago Connect. A couple of folks use a few different analogies. They'll talk about, it's all things connected vehicle and all things connected home, all kind of mashed up into one. That's one, or you could think of an integration of all the systems of the vehicle brought into one central control system that you can control with the touchscreen on the wall. But then you can also use a mobile app, pair your mobile app with it, and then you have a mobile app where you can monitor and control your vehicle from there. But for us, it's way more than that. It's way bigger than that. We really see we're giving the vehicle a brain. We're giving it eyes and ears. We're creating the ultimate channel of engagement with our customers. Imagine you think about all these businesses who are struggling to reach customers, find new customers. Once you have them, how do you keep in communication? You're emailing, your Facebook groups, all of this. We have a channel right in our product that we can engage with our customers, learn from our customers by the use, how they use our products. That goes into the data collection. We start to learn and understand our customers more. We're able to service our customers better by being able to understand the issues and things that are going on with the vehicle. So in other words, you don't have to bring your vehicle into the dealership to assess the challenges that may be facing, which would ultimately streamline your servicing support. And it's a smart system in the sense that it also it's helping us with how we manufacture our products, and it intelligently understands what is the system supposed to be made up of, what are the components I'm supposed to be able to communicate with, and ensures that all of those communications are happening properly before it leaves our plant. This is going to improve our quality over time. So it's really a much bigger opportunity, a much bigger, milestone for us in establishing this capability. But ultimately, it starts and ends with improving the overall customer experience, right? That is a pillar of ours. It's where we focus. And I'll give you some example, a really good example. I just saw your dog come into screen. Perfect timing. So we have like 65 to 70% of our customers are traveling in their motorhomes with a pet. And occasionally they want to go for a walk by themselves, or they need to go into town, and they're afraid to leave that pet behind in the vehicle, because if you've lived in an RV or spent time camping in an RV, temperature changes really quickly. The sun comes out behind the clouds, and the heat rises inside the box, right? Your campground power supply, when you're hooked up to shore power at a campground, is generally unreliable. And so customers are worried to leave their pet behind while they go for a hike, because the temperature is going to change. The lights might go out. The pet might not handle any of that very well. They handle it much worse than we do, right? So we created a feature within the Winnebago Connect system called Pet Minder, and you can monitor those things, turn it on, and then you'll get push notification to your phone when you're out on your hike or in town if anything should change in the coach that you need to be concerned about that would endanger your pet. So that's just a good example of where we're innovating beyond just the controls and the monitoring of the vehicle, and into really in depth trying to look at the customer's experience and how do we improve it.
So on this podcast, we've talked a lot about connectivity and like public transit and emergency services, and it has some similar tones to it, right? In terms of how you're monitoring the performance of the vehicle, any notifications, as well as providing data and information to the people using the vehicle that's valuable to them. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that system is actually connected. Was there any kind of trial and error with that? Is it a reliance on cellular, satellite? Like how does that look for you guys at Winnebago and for the end user?
Yeah, that's a great question. And connectivity is a unique challenge. I've spent my career kind of in the connected product space, and specifically in transportation. And you generally have the challenge of these vehicles are moving, and while they're moving, how do I retain and maintain a solid connection? But it expands even further as a challenge in the RV world, as Kunal mentioned. People are trying to go further out to the farthest reaches and see places nobody's ever seen before, and at the same time they want to be able to go through and use it on the weekends to, shuttle their kids around. All of those scenarios mean they're in different locations. You've got urban areas, rural areas, and so when we look at connectivity and you want to establish connectivity at this point, it's how do we get the best of all of those options so that how do we reach all of those spaces so that we can provide reliable connectivity throughout. So with Winnebago Connect, we use an approach where the system doesn't necessarily care how it gets connectivity. If it's connected, it can do all of these things. By the way, we provide over-the-air software updates to constantly improve the product. So get new features and functionality to users over time, and improve, address bugs, things of that nature. How do I deliver those updates to an individual? How do I support them in the field regardless of where they are? So we're using a Cradle Point router inside, which is a dual carrier solution. It has both a Verizon and AT&T SIM in it, so we're able to connect to both networks. It's a smart device, so it's able to shift between them to whatever gives us the best connectivity. And if the user is going to go off grid and they need connectivity in those rural areas, Starlink has become a real big player in that space, and so the ability to hook up a Starlink and plug it into the Cradle Point, start utilizing that as another secondary bridge, that option is there as well. And then the other one is just our ability to connect the vehicle to any external Wi-Fi network, and you're able to do that again through the Winnebago Connect system and assistance of the router that we're using. And so that really gives us flexibility to support connectivity everywhere, but doing it in a way that's flexible to meet the needs of the individual consumer.
I'm curious how the support of that has been for you guys at Winnebago. And I'd like to narrow it down specifically to the connectivity component, because I'm sure you guys have a great support team that has to go through everything from like, why is this light on, to like, how do I get the light back on, or whatever the case is. But from a connectivity point of view, are you guys managing like all of the Winnebago Connect subscriptions from one location? Are you providing kind of network troubleshooting, or is that something that the customer does once they sign up? Like, what does that relationship look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have with this product, and it's another form of innovation. If I think about the evolution of our business and what Winnebago Connect is able to provide, is we have established a Winnebago subscription, which is initially tied to data plans tied to your vehicle. We have a base plan that is $10 a month, but you get the first year for free. It gives you all the over-the-air software updates. It gives you functionality like we pump in vehicle severe weather alerts. Again, something that would concern you when you're camping. And then getting the over-the-air software updates, getting better service support, and I'll talk a little bit about that from the connectivity and established in the offboarding of data. But you can go in and get that. So when you purchase your vehicle, you can initiate that and get that established. Or if you want to upgrade from that plan, you can get a vehicle plan, a subscription plan that also will allow you to have in-vehicle Wi-Fi, so you can connect your other devices, and just gives you a larger data plan. And one of the nice innovative things that we've done is, beyond the dual carrier option, you also have the ability to pause the plan when your vehicle is being stored and you're not using it, and then turn it back on by just simply unpausing it through our mobile app, and it automatically comes back on for you. And so that's really, again, meeting the customer where the customer is. Now, where support comes into play is, I have an issue, I'm trying to connect, I can't, or I'm just, trying to have an issue addressed with my vehicle, and we're relying on connectivity. So from that perspective, we're doing a lot of offboarding of data about the vehicle and the state of the vehicle, any issues that the vehicle is having, the state of the software, the state of the connectivity, what they're connected through. We've brought that together in our own kind of operational management dashboard, which allows us to look into a vehicle. Again, they call our customer care line. We're able to pull them up, talk with them, and see their vehicle and everything going on with it. That is enormous. I can't tell you how big of a deal that is. If you servicing your vehicle in the RV industry is a challenge. You think like, you're used to your car. Oh, I've got a Ford, Mustang. Go to a Ford dealership and they'll just fix it. Well, it might not be. Every dealership doesn't work on every vehicle. Some only do trailers, some only do motorhomes, some only don't do diesel engines, some don't do this chassis or that chassis. It's kind of tough. And then you've got to bring it in. They've got to assess it. Then they don't hold any inventory on hand, or generally a small amount of inventory. So then you usually have to wait to get it repaired. So that ability to say, oh, we've identified the issue, and this is what's going to need to be replaced, and the exact part, then they're able to get that done more efficiently. Or in certain cases, and we saw this in our early days already, where we're able to address their issue with just an over-the-air software update, which makes it really convenient for the customer. They didn't have to go anywhere, and all of a sudden their problem's fixed. It's great, right? But then it does go beyond that, where we have to get into, okay, now I'm having a difficulty with the connection. What's wrong with the connection? Then we'll usually jump into some portals that are provided from our partners, from like Cradlepoint has a Net Cloud Manager suite, which is really awesome. I can see every router, what the SIMs are, what carriers are connected to, the quality of the connection. I can change configuration dynamically. That's really powerful. And then the same thing on kind of the SIM management side. What plan they're enrolled in, is everything activated, is the carrier saying it's a good plan. So we do get into kind of those lower level needs from time to time, but mostly we're able to look at all of that in one place as kind of a starting point for this product.
So Marc, you mentioned that customers have the ability not just to change the plan from Winnebago, right? Adding their own Wi-Fi, adding dual SIM. But you mentioned the potential of them, like, if you are an RVer, you can go get your own Starlink to mount on the RV. And you mentioned something about being at them. And it sounds like part of the kind of core value of Winnebago Connect is just making this easy for customers. Yeah. So, knowing that, I'm a network engineer in my background, knowing that networking is not easy, especially right. for the layman, like, how do you guys address those kind of things where it's like, yeah, the customer wants to bring their own kind of connectivity to help augment what you guys are providing? Like, how do you enable that and make that easier?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mauricio. It was interesting because we started with the premise that we weren't going to please everybody. The customer needs were too broad to have a single solution support everybody's desires. As Kunal mentioned, the roots are kind of in the tradition. I guess the customer of old was generally retired. This was like something you would purchase after retirement and then travel the country. Now we have these digital nomads who are spending. One of the early purchases of the product is a developer at Apple, and she's bought the product so she can go on the road and see the country while she works, because she's homebound and she's working from home, and she bought it because it's got Winnebago Connect in it, and the flexibility and connectivity that it provides in the vehicle is beyond anything you can get in any other product. But it is one of those things where we had to think about, how do we make it dynamic or flexible enough to support all those various needs. As well, we've had to look at, how do we create a solution that will also work on the full spectrum of our products. So at the Class A end of things, you can talk about a $500,000 vehicle, and it's a home on wheels, and people are expecting everything and wanting everything, then you need to have not just cellular. You got to have Starlink. You got to get satellite, Starlink, Wi-Fi. You want to be able to make sure I have every option available to me. Then on the lower end, you think about a low-cost towable vehicle that I still want to be able to monitor, support, provide some security and safety measures around things of that nature, but it needs to be low cost. So we've looked at how do we do that with, alternative connectivity packages, as well as, building a system where we're not relying on an in-vehicle display. So you could actually even just use the mobile app and pair it with your vehicle, and this becomes your display. Your phone becomes your display. And so we had to architect the system around those basic fundamental requirements. And then, like I said, at the heart, our brain, or our compute unit that is the brain within the vehicle, it just either has a connection or it doesn't, and then everything kind of works from there. So you can change it over time. That was another thing that we knew. The life of an RV is much longer. Like a traditional automotive product is like 11 years. In the RV space, it's more like 25 years. I don't even know what the average number is, but it's something like that. And that means the technology is going to age out, right? And so
a limit does not exist.
Yes. So how do I make sure that, the product will still work, 15 years ago when the internet connectivity is in a different form that we don't know, and making it so that could be plugged in and work. That was kind of a foundational design pattern that we had to follow.
So you mentioned that, right, the system is either connected or it's not, and it knows when it is and it isn't. Are you guys doing any kind of store and forwarding or edge compute to kind of alleviate, because I think Kunal mentioned right at the top is like people are going further and further out, right? Yeah. They want to be off grid. And I think, Kunal put it very great, right? They want to go off grid and be disconnected, but they still want that connection, peace of mind. You mentioned, the pet minder, but then also, depending on if you're traveling solo or where you're traveling to, you might have cameras to watch your RV, even without pets, just to have that security, peace of mind, because you may be, hiking for several hours, or you may even, park the RV and go do an overnight backpack trip away from the RV. So having that peace of mind. So are you guys doing some store and forward to continue to have that peace of mind, even when that connection, you may be in a place even satellite is not available?
Yeah, so I will say, you're speaking to some of the challenges that lie ahead for us in the product. I will say, we're looking at technologies like LoRaWAN, if you're familiar, long range WAN network type of capabilities, which gives broader reach, lower bandwidth abilities just for small types of things like, I just need to know how to get back, or I just need to be alerted of something. We're looking at that capability. We already have kind of, in our infancy, at least on the cellular side, have some logic that looks at what carrier is the best, what has the strongest connection, and switching over automatically. Again, to your point, it needs to be easy and convenient for the customer. It just needs to happen. So as we introduce Starlink, Wi-Fi, other options, other connectivity options, we'll continue to expand that logic so that the system is smart and recognizes what connectivity option I have that would serve the need best, and utilize that. And we'll have to just continue to expand that as we go. But we're kind of in our infancy as it relates to that smart connectivity management side of things.
So one last question that I have for you guys, speaking of, changing things as you go, now that these onboard connectivity solutions are in place, do you have some goals for further innovation? Is this kind of a platform that you're going to spring from with more? You don't have to give away any secrets, but yeah, I mean, is there something on the horizon that we can look forward to?
Yeah, there's lots of things in our plans and lots of desires of things we'd like to do. The roadmap is too long, and it certainly can't give away too much about where we're headed. But I would just say that, with the foundation we lay, we believe we're in a unique position and differentiated position in the market. This has been a long, 3+ year journey, building it inside a company who, is not a digital, or had not traditionally been a digital first company, is a challenge in its own right. Not to mention developing the technology and doing it well takes a lot of time and with your customers and working through that process. But we have the foundation laid. We will continue to introduce new features for our customers over time through our over-the-air software update delivery process, which is going to be great because their products will get better over time, and we'll continue to improve that. And then we certainly have some additional opportunities where it'll allow us to expand our business, expand our offerings to customers, serve our dealers better. I can't really get too much into that, but I don't know, Kunal, what would you add to that?
No, to echo what Marc is saying, this has only just begun, and it's hard to say that when we know we're in the third year of this journey, but the foundations are set. The first set of products, which is on our View Navion series, where Winnebago Connect is launching and debuting on, is the first of many products that we plan to proliferate the technology through. I'm super glad Marc brought up the second piece. We're the first RV OEM, especially one of the longstanding ones, that has taken software, hardware, and traditional RV manufacturing and figured out a way to actually bring it together. We're no longer just an assembler, as Marc said, of our competition of suppliers. We're building it, and that change management piece was a huge undertaking, and quite proud to kind of see the organization come together to execute that. So noting that those are, I wouldn't say out of the way, but we've kind of tackled those challenges, and we've kind of grown as an organization and built a lot of capabilities. As we think about the future, if it was in Marc and my hands, we would move as quick as I think we would want to, and just start unlocking capabilities and feature set as quick as possible. Obviously, we're thinking about a broad portfolio, and I would say one is, as Marc said, expand the functionality. We have a roadmap and a laundry list of ideas that go from relatively easy to what I would call Star Trek, Star Wars kind of mentality. And we'll see how long that takes. But that's the beauty of this thing, is it's software, and we can continue to iterate on it. And we will continue to iterate on it. And then the second part is obviously proliferate through the portfolio. So our portfolio, this is one of many products that we have. We have A, B, and C. We have travel trailers, and we'll have new products as we kind of live and breathe to kind of our credo of how we think about things. And so we now can at least proudly say we have a digital product set within this organization. It's not just A, B, C travel trailers. We internally talk about our digital product being Winnebago Connect, and that evolution, no differently than the current portfolio of continuous refreshes and new products. This will be just part of it. Our digital team is a product team that's going to continue to evolve what's in front of us. So the exciting part is you're catching us right at the beginning. First set of units are coming off the line. First set of units are hitting customers' paved or driveways, and they're starting to take it out. And so we'll learn from that.
Well, we're excited that we got to catch you at the beginning. And, it definitely makes me think you guys have a packed agenda. So we appreciate you joining us today for a little bit to share how connectivity has really helped your RVs become even smarter, and that there's more to come. So before we fully wrap up, Kunal, can you share where our listeners can maybe learn more about Winnebago, more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I would just say go to winnebago.com. Once you get onto our website and you go to products, you'll see Winnebago Connect. You'll see all of our products there. Best place to do that is on our website, again, winnebago.com. Or join us at a live RV show. Those are always fun too. So.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. Go check it out in person.
All right, Joey.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
So I enjoyed talking to Winnebago because I think it's interesting to see a company whose legacy is like so deep. It goes back so long. I mean, it's more than 70 years now, or almost 70 years. And it's kind of an interesting journey for them to now be able to say, Marc was saying, now we haven't always been digital first, but now it's a foundation that we have. And that can be kind of a scary journey to take, but it's cool to see them taking these steps to integrate all those digital elements.
Yeah, it's funny, especially for an industry that really is built on going off grid, right? Is really built on like getting away from that. So much so that I think even today, some RVs are just built with like AM FM radios still built in, right? Is like who's still, I know they're still in vehicles,
Manual
but
windows.
yeah, I mean, who still listens to AM FM radio, right? With Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you listen to, hopefully where you're listening to our podcast, but they're still built in there. So it's very interesting to hear about, a company that's legacy is built going off grid, about talking about connectivity and how to balance that connectivity to so that you still feel like you're disconnecting from everything, right? Because that's what people want to do when they're camping, but still having the connectivity for that peace of mind. And the other thing that really struck me as interesting, as we talk to businesses that are not necessarily using our products for connectivity for their customers. They're using it for connectivity for their own, monitoring of their vehicles and stuff like that. I think you brought that up, but it's interesting to hear that kind of Winnebago is facing those same kind of challenges in trying to give that connectivity and quote unquote fleet management capabilities to their customers, even though it's like a fleet of one, but that's essentially what they're doing, right? Is they're trying to consumerize fleet management for their customers so that they can, manage the vehicle and they can understand the telematics coming off the vehicle and when it needs to go to the shop and what may need to be repaired, and being able to communicate that to Winnebago or potentially the service provider, vehicle service provider, because they mentioned, right, is like, I may buy a Winnebago from a local dealership who can't service that vehicle entirely or may not be able to service parts of that vehicle. Just kind of maybe go on a little tangent, right? My mom is in that situation. Like, she has an RV. She bought it from a local dealership, but that local dealership can't service all parts of that RV. And so it becomes difficult for her to figure out where and when to take it to who and for what and where to get warranty service. And so for Winnebago to come up with a system that kind of eliminates that. You can call in, they can look up your vehicle, they can say, oh, it needs this service and this provider is the closest in your area to provide that service. But then also the quality of life things that they're driving that we all think about in our smart homes and things like that. And that's not necessarily a sector that we're heavy in, but it's interesting to see that intersection of fleet management and smart home kind of come together, and Winnebago kind of pioneering that for their customers.
You mentioned this, and Marc did too, about how the goal is to really disconnect while being connected. And I think that the way that Winnebago can do that is by having reliable connectivity so that the things that are connected run so seamlessly that it's almost as if you're disconnected, right? You're not having to think about it, essentially, because once you have to start thinking about it, then you're connected again, right? And then you're dealing with tech and you're dealing with those things. And so I'm happy to hear that they have a solution in place, something like the dual modem solutions that can help make sure that things are seamless and giving that illusion, I guess, of remaining disconnected.
Well, and that's exactly right? Because it's giving them it. I loved how they said they empower the customers to choose kind of the level of connectivity, because you can get the connectivity that gives you the peace of mind to monitor the vehicle, to monitor your pets, to do those smart home things without necessarily having to have Wi-Fi, which would connect your phone and your tablet and make you available via email and Slack and Teams and the constant barrage of social media notifications and other notifications. So it is being able to, like you said, and they said, and I just love that kind of term, is being connected while you disconnect.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And if you listen to this from your RV, spot on. If you enjoyed this look into how cellular is transforming industries, please rate and subscribe to What's Your Signal wherever you listen to podcasts.